So anyway, a couple things. Just wanted to point out on the questions section is where I'll be able to kind of respond to any questions. So use that rather than the chat. That'll make it easier because I've got that front and center in my screen as we start this broadcast today. Also, in the handouts section, there are 5 different handouts for you. A couple of things will be really fabulous for your digital marketing effort as you move forward into 2016. So I encourage you to download those files. They're over there in the handouts drop-down section of the GoToWebinar control panel. So take a look, and I'll leave the control panel up for a while at the end of today's session so you'll have time to download all of those because there are 5 of them. I like to give away treats. So let's get started. You're all here nice and early, and I want to reward you for that. How to make digital marketing work for you. Before we go any further, I wanted you to meet Abu. She is almost 9 years old. I say she's 9 going on 4. I don't know if you know, but big dogs shine bright and fast. So I'm reverse aging her, 9 going on 4. She weighs about 105 to 110, depending on the day. And sometimes she makes herself known in the middle of various broadcasts. So I work from home when I do these kind of things because our offices are still kind of echoey. And we're still working on audio quality and whatnot. So Boo might make herself known. If I don't introduce her, she will. Just know that. Most importantly, though, before we get going, I have a small poll for you. We're going to take a few polls today. And the first one is, can you see my screen? Great. So it looks like most everyone can see my screen, which is fantastic. Looks like possibly maybe one person can't see the screen, and I wonder if that's Sarah. Okay, no worries. We will keep going because, as I mentioned, we're recording. So as it relates to how to make digital marketing work for you, when we did the marketing and started to think through this and how to position this to get people to attend, we talked about 3 critical ideas. How can you scale marketing to meet your sales efforts? My belief as a marketer is that marketing is to sweep the path for sales. Sweep the path for sales. So I believe that sales and marketing ought to be aligned. If you have a reporting structure, they should be aligned, and they should be actually compensated in similar ways, right? Because marketing needs to fill the sales pipeline. Also, though, how can you create a sustainable digital marketing plan yourself? And what are some ways that you might want to start monitoring and measuring your results? So those are the things I want to talk about today. And there's all of these things to kind of think about as it relates to this world of digital marketing. When we had our last digital broadcast last month, one of the questions that I asked specifically was around this whole social media ideas beyond sales. What are the things that you wanted to accomplish or learn more about in that particular broadcast? And you'll note that a significant portion of people were very interested in building brand awareness, right? Using social to build brand awareness. This was a multiple choice question where I actually allowed you to select multiple options. This piece down here about enhancing client relationships, I'm going to challenge you on that. And I think later on when I do the, let me do this. When I do the piece around expanding your referral network, I'm going to talk a little bit about how to enhance client relationships. Okay? So we'll talk a little bit today about the branding portion, but we're going to get into other little few things. So specifically, around branding. We're going to talk about branding next time. How to create a killer digital brand. That's going to be next time, and that's on March 17th. You can kind of lock these into your calendar for the rest of the year. They're the third Thursday at 9 Pacific, noon Eastern. Today, though, I am very interested in kind of what brought you here about all of the various pieces that I talked about, I kind of at the beginning, right? Do you want to scale marketing? Do you want to create a digital marketing plan, etc.? So maybe take just a minute and tell us what brought you here today. Great. So we're over 75%. So that would be statistically significant. Looks like most of you really want to understand how to create a digital marketing plan. Fantastic, because I have some ideas for you. Let's talk about marketing kind of in general, though. Marketing in general. A lot of times people call me and say, I want to get myself some of that social media. And I believe that probably in some ways folks see that as kind of a silver bullet. It's not a silver bullet, and it's really not standalone. The components of a digital marketing plan are really the components of your overall marketing plan. I want to actually see a marketing plan that encompasses your online world and your offline world. So, how can you promote the work that your firm is doing? How can you attract people to kind of come to those particular things and read and do, and as an example, attend this particular webinar? And how can you engage them? And then beyond that, how can you add on your personal effort of phone calls and meetings and outreach and handwritten thank you notes, possibly, right? So these are the components of a marketing plan overall. Unfortunately, I think that a lot of organizations get overwhelmed with the thought of creating a marketing plan and all of those particular pieces of the puzzle. Let me make it a little bit more complicated. Good morning. So here is my perception of the digital marketing ecosystem. This is my perception of the digital marketing ecosystem. And by the end of today's conversation, you're going to have a better idea of what all of this means. All right? But let me just kind of walk you through it a little bit, see if my pen will work. Specifically, I want you to have a search engine optimized website that has valuable content on it in a variety of different places. This is also where your PR is. The reason why I want you to have that is because it feeds the Google beast. It feeds the Google beast. Also, though, in this world of social media, as it feeds your marketing, I don't want you to be out there in the social sphere just kind of having a party. I want you to be intentional about it, and I will talk you through some of those ideas. But let's look at this kind of from the perspective of thought leadership. Last time I talked about inbound marketing. I talked about Seth Godin's approach to permission marketing, and specifically how I translate that into thought leadership. The world of social is not about the world of selling. The world of social is about building a personal brand, building a brand around thought leadership, building a brand around giving your smarts away. Giving your smarts away. And I think you likely see this kind of happening. It started with McKinsey, right? When in the 60s or so, they started doing white papers and whatnot. And frankly, I feel like we're white papered to death. So possibly, could you please call those guides or ebooks or whatnot or tip sheets? Let's skip the white paper word for a while. But professional services that become thought leaders have a much higher realization rate. Marketing, your job is to build the thought leadership and the perception of thought leadership within the mind's eye of your prospects and clients. Thought leaders write, thought leaders write, thought leaders write. Am I repeating myself? Thought leaders write, thought leaders speak, and they publish research and use social platforms to amplify their reach. So I want you to kind of have this core of thought leadership kind of in the back of your mind today, because as we talk about how all of these pieces work together, specifically, the thought leadership would reside on your website, kind of from within blogs, within the ebooks that you do, within the research, some kind of extra special offering. That's where your thought leadership resides, as it resides on your website. To make our marketing plans a little bit easier today, I'm going to focus our energy on just a few pieces of the marketing puzzle. Okay? So specifically around websites, social media, lead magnets, what are those? Web landing pages, what are those? And email outreach. And if you could only do one thing this year as it relates to your world of digital marketing, I really encourage you to have a mobile-enabled, search engine optimized, beautifully designed, uniquely branded website. If you only have a particular budget for marketing and you have a choice between doing a brochure or doing a website, please, oh please, fix your website, because that is the basis for your digital world. 75 million people, $25 trillion is Generation D. That's the digital generation. These people are using the internet. They are using the web to make decisions. In fact, in our world of kind of consumer goods, people get to about 75% through with their buying decision before they even contact an organization. They are educating themselves more. Likely why, right? The purchase kind of timeline is about 22% longer, because people are doing a lot of the work up front and come to the table much more educated. Unfortunately, when I work with a lot of firms within the financial services industry, they have a check the box website. They might have put it up maybe in 1998. They may have brushed it off, right, in 2000 or so. But pretty much their website is just a check the box website. And as far as I am concerned, a check the box website is not communicating what you want it to. A check the box website could actually get in your way of a successful digital outreach. Our world of financial services, right, is very much fueled by referrals. So what I believe happens is when someone's referred to you, they go to your website and start to do some research. If you've got a check the box website, it could be standing in your way of sales. So within the snap of a finger, right, within the blink of an eye, within 50 milliseconds, which is about what? I don't know what the number is from a second. People make a decision and form an opinion about your website, right? They show up to your website and they form an opinion. And they form an opinion about your business. They make a judgment about your company's credibility based upon your website design, right? And what's interesting to me is that the impressions that are formed, 94% of them are informed by design. And to those of you that really kind of continue to think no business happens on social, 85% of business-to-business customers search the web before making a purchasing decision. But they come to your site And if it's a check-the-box website, they may bounce right off and bounce right over to your competition. I want to go back to really one of the polls that we did in the last particular Digital Institute, which is building brand identity was one of the reasons why you wanted to use social media. What are people seeing when they come to your website? This is actually some content specifically from our ShoeFitts marketing proposal template. We see the power of branding and marketing every day of our consumer-driven lives. Yet we often don't draw the parallels to how these same ideas and theories might apply to our own organization's marketing efforts. We are all consumers. We are all consumers. We know what's pleasing as it relates to websites, right? We know. But we don't necessarily, from our business's perspectives, look at our sites in such a critical way. What does your website say about your business? Have you really kind of looked at it from the outside, right? Is it poor design or old design, or is it all blue? Does it have the same pictures as your competitors have? Is it a cookie cutter website that you got because it was possibly affordable? Was the last blog post maybe in 2014? Did you go put your website up, put some newsletter on there, and then you haven't updated since? Is it slow to load? Is it mobile enabled? Right? What does that say about your business, right? Is it that you're not with it, or you're fine with mediocre or mediocrity? Is your last blog post in 2014, does it say that you're inconsistent? In the world where we're competing, right, against robo-advisors or technology in the world of financial services, do you want to be viewed as technologically incompetent? What does your website say about your business? So I think there are probably 7 kind of components that we look at when we look at websites. First off, is it findable? Is it findable? How fast does it load? Is it visually appealing? Is it modern? Is it current? Is it aesthetically pleasing? Is the messaging right? Is there helpful content? Is it mobile enabled? And does it have a way to welcome visitors with some kind of call to action? That is one of the most interesting things I see as it relates to kind of the world of websites. So we have a little handout, and it's over in the handouts that I mentioned early on. So those of you who joined a little bit later, the handouts are over in the GoToWebinar control panel, and there are actually 5 of them. And one of them is it time for a website checkup? I want your website to shout that you're open. I want your website to shout your company's culture. I want your website to kind of engage people and hook them emotionally. I want your website to really mimic the passion you have when you're working alongside your clients. I'll give you an example, ShoeFitts Marketing. So the website on the left is my very first website. When I launched ShoeFitts Marketing, this is what my website looked like. And actually, if you want to see what people's website looked like in the past, there's something called the Wayback Machine. If you Google Wayback Machine, it will actually help you look at websites from the past. And that's where I grabbed a screenshot of ShoeFitts.com back in 2013, right? Because we started in December of 2012. And frankly, not a bad little site for a nice little business. There, it was pleasing. It was mobile enabled. I had a call to action. I had content. Now, I didn't have a blog that was consistent, right? And that was one of the things that was really kind of critical, because I know the more content I write, the more traction I get on my website, the more conversions I make. Now, down to the lower right, this is our website right now. And you can see that I've shifted the color palette a little bit. And I did that specifically because I want to elicit an idea of power, of strength, right? And when I look at the color palette on the left-hand side, it's pleasing and people say, Sherry, it looked just like you, all happy. And, but we work with institutional clients. We help do strategy for large organizations. And I really needed to kind of power up ShoeFitts.com. In between, there was another website, actually. I've been in business 3 years, and we've redone our website 3 times. Now, I'm not necessarily saying that you need to do that. It is our hobby, and I continue to try to look at how can I optimize my website because I live in the digital sphere, right? And I've got a variety of different ways for people to kind of learn more and be on the lookout because we are in the process of looking at what are we going to change as it relates to this particular site already. And I know the ShoeFitts crew is rolling their eyes. Let's talk about Google, though. You are who Google says you are. Why do I create content? Because it feeds the Google beast. Content feeds the Google beast. In the world of digital marketing, back to your website, it is a huge piece of your brand identity. It is an active part of your sales team. And having a website with all of those components, speed to load, right? Mobile enabled, friendly content, helpful content. Those are ways to feed the Google beast. The way that Google judges you, right, is specifically about what kind of content you have on your site. You've likely heard of search engine optimization. But the other piece of that particular puzzle is how long people stay on your site. How long people stay on your site. At ShoeFitts.com, the average visit is 2 minutes, 15 seconds. I'd love that to be more, right? But 2 minutes, 15 seconds, that is fantastic. What's interesting is between my old website and my new website, the one that was in between had a really, really high bounce rate. 60% of people were coming onto my site and bouncing right back off. Not good. Google keeps track of that. So content is king. Content is king because it feeds the Google beast and it drives the opportunity for you to build thought leadership. I'm going to walk you through our little diagram step by step so you can see how the digital pieces fit together. So your digital office door is a mobile-enabled, search engine optimized, ongoing valuable content website. That content could be blogs, could be video actually, could be white papers, research, etc. So at ShoeFitts, I have blogs, I have white papers, I have guides, I have a podcast, and then this particular recording will be a video because YouTube is the second largest search engine in the world. So this is my digital office front door. And all of this content is accessible. Go on over to ShoeFitts.com and you can get your access to it whenever you want, right? Is blogging getting in your way? Do you feel like content development is hard? Do you blog at all? Do you blog at all? So let's go back here. Hang on, back to my little polling. I want to know, do you blog? Do you have plans to blog? Cool. We're at 75%. Statistically significant. I'm sure an advisor would tell me that's not right. Let's look. So, wow, awesome. Congratulations for those of you that are blogging monthly or better. And I bet you would share with the rest of the crew that blogging is a muscle. The more you write, the easier it is. The more you see everywhere. And I'll give you a blog idea that came to me the other day on Sunday. I know it's crazy. So some of you are doing quarterly. Some of you have nothing planned. Okay. Please reconsider blogging. Now, I wonder if that's because oftentimes there's this compliance component that we have to face in the financial services world. And perhaps compliance is getting in the way. And I should have asked that particular question. I'll have to ask that next time. But I would say possibly think about carving out, let's go for Monday, February 29th, leap year day, when really it doesn't exist any other year. Spend that day and write 3 blogs, submit those to compliance, and get them up on your website. Because I want to show you what to do with your blog, right? What you get done. The other piece, though, if you'll recall, I said a welcome mat, or a way to kind of convert people once they're on your site. And that type of conversion is called a lead magnet, right? It's a hook. It's a super valuable offering that you put on your website behind a nice little velvet rope that incentivizes people to give you their contact information. Guess what? This webinar is a lead magnet, right? Because in order to attend the webinar, you needed to sign up and give me your email address. It's an extra special offering, right? That allows you to have access to this particular content that you wouldn't necessarily have on ShoeFitts.com. It's a lead magnet. Here's another example of a lead magnet on ShoeFitts.com. So I wrote a blog post, create a magnetic brand, build margin. By the way, we'll be talking about that on March 17th. And in this particular blog article, right, I have a handy little brand touchpoint audit. And before you can get your hands on the handy little brand touchpoint audit, right, I ask that you give me your email address. And then I take your email address and your name and I put you on my nurture list. So I put you on my email list. And then I send out ongoing valuable content and information about what's going on at ShoeFitts. So a lead magnet works to pull people as a visitor to your site into your email list so that they're a suspect and possibly a prospect and then possibly a client, right? Here's an example of how I use a lead magnet in the digital sphere. This is a post that I did on LinkedIn about what Martha Stewart can teach financial advisors about obsolescence. And in that particular post, you'll see that I've got this lovely little download now, right? Download now call to action that links you to this particular form, and then I send you your 6 steps to a spectacular social strategy. As you're thinking about your content strategy for the rest of the year, I want you to think about possibly 4 lead magnets that you could create. Checklists, guides, financial survival guides. What are the things that you might be able to give away to people in exchange for them giving you some contact information? So let's look at let's go back here. Let's look at our little model now that we're building it out a little bit more, okay? So we've got all this wonderful, valuable content that people can find for free, right? That feeds the Google beast, that validates your thought leadership, that helps people stick around on your website, right? And then you've got these lead magnets. So on my website also, we've got a 100 social media tip guide that if you sign up for my newsletter, I give that to you. But what I do before you can get your hands on it is this wonderful little velvet rope. And before you can get to the velvet rope, I have something called a web landing page. Doesn't matter. It's called an autoresponder. You can work with your web folks, but essentially it says, hang on one second, before you get your hands on this uberly fabulous, valuable content, give me your contact info. And then what I do, right, is I take And once you fill that out, I put you onto my regular ongoing outbound nurture campaign. I email you, which most people really think email is no noise. What's fascinating about email in the digital sphere is that it has a 2 times higher return on investment from email marketing than cold calling, networking, or trade shows. I do social media coaching calls. It's a 3-hour call where I'll sit with the team and help them with their social media strategy and content strategy. And the other day, a gentleman asked me, he said, Sherry, do you do any cold calling? And I said, I do zero cold calling. Zero cold calling. So I build thought leadership. I give content away for free. I speak and I nurture through email marketing. Guess what? Email readership is going up because we carry around our email box with us all the time in the form of a smartphone. Now, I wonder though, if the reason why some folks kind of say that their email isn't necessarily working for them, it could be that their subject line on their emails is really boring. It could say fourth quarter newsletter, right? They could also say that in the social sphere. It always makes me giggle when I see somebody post on Twitter, read my recent blog. I don't know what it's about. I don't know if I want to make time for it. And I find read my recent blog so compelling. I want to poke my eye out. Email open rates for professional services firms are about 18.4%. Now, my email list is about 7,000 right now. And I love the fact that every time I send out an email broadcast, I do not call them blasts because I believe that they are valuable and I always keep them valuable. Every time I send that out, I get between a 16 and 25% open rate. That is awesome. And I get people responding to me, asking me for information about the services that we provide. I went to a conference and it seemed like every other person that I saw said, Sherry, I get your email newsletter. It's like talking to you, right? I focus a lot of energy on our subject lines. We spend a lot of time with the ShoeFitts crew thinking through subject lines. By the way, and this isn't in there, there's something called co-schedule. So co-schedule.com. If you Google co-schedule headline grader, you can start to mess around with powerful headlines and or email subject lines that might help you with your open rates. The more you send emails, the more valuable they are, the more consistent they are, the more you'll drive your open rate. Now, what's interesting is I use the blog content that I have on ShoeFitts.com. I proactively send that out in the form of a newsletter. And I also proactively use that as content on LinkedIn. That does get me dinged as far as some Google kind of original content goes from being on ShoeFitts.com and LinkedIn.com. But the only people that probably read blog posts on ShoeFitts.com when I first put them up are my brother and maybe Pam, who's one of our amazing writers at the ShoeFitts crew. So I don't kid myself that people are just waiting to read my blog. People don't subscribe to blogs anymore, really, that often. So a lot of people are taking their blog content and they're repurposing it and they're sending it out as a newsletter. So I don't anticipate that you're having to write 3 articles a day. In fact, there are so many ways for you to repurpose content. In fact, I have an idea for a blog post on how you can repurpose content. So I'm going to do that. But how many of you, setting the blog stuff aside, how many of you have a newsletter? How many of you send out a newsletter to your prospects and clients? Okay, we've got over our statistically significant. Okay, So, looks like a large portion of you are sending out newsletters, and some of you have plans for the year, and some of you need help. Let me just tell you, ShoeFitts helps organizations create newsletter and create newsletter content. Again, nurturing, once you've pulled people kind of off the digital world and into your layer of valuable, helpful content for them, right? Being in front of them on an ongoing basis is one of the most critical things. One of my friends, Jane Murphy, owns a company called Acceleration Retirement, and they do outbound lead generation for financial services firms and beyond, actually. And one of the things that they really know is that their efforts to do outbound calling are multiplied when they're able to include an outbound email newsletter. For those of you that are doing newsletters quarterly, I challenge you to do them monthly. For those of you that are not doing newsletters at all, I challenge you to do them quarterly. Okay? And there are a variety of organizations that can help create content for you. And then there's also content that you can lease. I'm not necessarily a fan of leased content, but I also know how important it is. And so we actually have that as a possibility as well. Get in front of people. I want you to nurture them. I don't want you to think of those as email blasts. I want you to think of them as nurture campaigns, right? So isn't it interesting that I haven't spent any time really talking about the world of social? Somebody asked a question. What do you mean by newsletter? That's kind of an interesting thing. So when I think about newsletters, I think about those short, brief articles that can go out on a monthly basis to folks. So, and that's actually a very good question because some people kind of view newsletters. What we did in the social sphere is we took our brochure and we put it online and we called it a website. We took our printed newsletter and we put it online and we called it an email newsletter. It's not really the same. What's happening with email newsletters these days is there is ongoing debate about whether shorter is better, about whether you should just do a synopsis and link to your site for more information, about whether to include graphics, etc. I would say I'm a fan of all of the above, and we keep actually experimenting with that from a ShoeFitts perspective. What happens for me is when I start writing content, I tend to get very long. I have a hard time keeping my content short. So my newsletters tend to be a little bit longer. And so, I continue to play around with it. From an email marketing perspective, one thing that you need to understand, really understand, is that you need to abide by the CAN-SPAM Act of 2003. And in the United States, the requirement is that at all times you have to have an unsubscribe or opt-out option for people. Now in Canada, people have to intentionally opt in. Best practices in the United States are intentionally opting in, which means that people say, yes, I want to be on your newsletter. So it really kind of depends on your particular perspective. I tell people that are working with ERISA attorneys that you need to ask them to opt in because that's the attorney type of mindset. If you're providing value, if you can provide a reason why you're sending somebody that particular content and you have an opt-out, I think it's perfectly fine. We have our opt-out, smack dab under my signature thing. So it's surprising to me the amount of people that send me marketing messages in a newsletter format that don't have an opt-out clause. And I always send them a little note about the CAN-SPAM Act. So the idea of doing an Outlook email, right, where you blind copy everyone doesn't work. Chances are your email will get blacklisted or you'll end up in the spam folder because Google, Yahoo, Microsoft Internet Explorer, all of those various kind of email receiving engines know when somebody's been blind copied. You need to use kind of a model that will help you deliver one newsletter to one person. And the newsletter engines that we kind of know about and or use at ShoeFitts are MailChimp, Constant Contact, Emma, Clickback. I'm checking out ConvertKit. We're using Infusionsoft right now. And many more, probably Redtail, iContact, right? Those are newsletter engines that help you not only kind of stay within the CAN spam compliant world, but also help you track and see who opened. So when you blind copy somebody, you have no way to measure open rates, right? So let's go back to this digital marketing ecosystem, and let's go back to social for a second, since you're like, wait a minute, I thought we were going to talk about social media. And let me get my little pen here again. And if we've got a website, right, that's search engine optimized, mobile enabled, all of that fabulous thing that has helpful, wonderful content that speaks to the Google beast, speaks to your thought leadership, and we've got lead magnets, right, on your particular website. Here's the other reason why I want you to have valuable content on your site is because when you're out talking in the social sphere, I want you to every once in a while talk about your content. Most people share other people's content. In fact, they just click a like button sometimes. But that doesn't really do anything to drive people back to your world, to your front door, right? To your digital front door, to your call to action, to your newsletter list. So the social sphere is a way to help drive people back to your website. So when you're out chatting on LinkedIn, or you're out chatting on Twitter, Facebook doesn't convert very well for businesses. I want you to highlight your content. By the way, a little tip, please make sure that when you're posting content on your website that you make it easy for people to share, because you've got those wonderful little share buttons right next to your content, right? If you don't, and all you do is use the social sphere to kind of build branding, right? What you're doing is building your business on rented property. So you can have 5,000 followers on Facebook. You can have so many friends on Twitter. You can have 4,000 connections on LinkedIn. And they could change the rules, and those could go away in a heartbeat. And then all of those connections, all of that nurturing that you've done, all of that hard work is gone, right? You're building your property. You're building your business on rented property. So I'm going to go back. That's why I want you to do a combined effort, right? I want you to do a combined effort. Share other people's content. Absolutely. You can't be writing every day, but I want you to share your content and pull people back to your website and get them to be on your email list, because then you own that. Facebook doesn't own your email list. You own your email list, and your email list is super valuable, particularly if every time you send one out, you can get 18% of the people to open it up. So let's talk about this world of, does digital really work, right? What are the things that you might want to measure? You might want to measure reach or exposure, right? Measuring the size of your network. In fact, being intentional about your network and growing your network, because the larger you grow your network, right? The bigger the net, the more fish you can catch. But then the more people see the content that you're sharing. You can also monitor your top performing and worst performing content. You can also track the conversions that take place on your website. So how many people come off the social sphere and decide to sign up for your newsletter? How many people come off the social sphere and decide to register for your webinar? And then, working alongside your sales folks, people are already doing research, right? Are those sales conversations a little bit easier? Are the close ratios kind of increasing? Here's actually an example of some digital in action. And I talked about Richard at Aventus last time. But so I walked Richard Tatum through a 4-month kind of coaching program through a TPA at a Crossroads series that Transamerica did. And Richard had to execute all the work. So we didn't execute. All I did was tell him what to do. It was perfect. And some of the things that happened for Richard was a 25% increase in his LinkedIn connections, a 56% increase in his website traffic, right? Website traffic. That's where the value is in this digital sphere. How you can convert this. And in fact, this is also an example of Transamerica using the digital world, right? Because they've got this on their website. And when you want to kind of get the expanding your digital footprint social media, right, that case study, before you kind of grab it, it's a lead magnet, they want you to fill out a little bit of information about yourself. It's a perfect example of digital in action on a couple of different realms. Let's talk about how I look at some of the things that are happening with regard to ShoeFitts and our digital effort. So I use Google Analytics to look at what's kind of going on ShoeFitts.com. I look at where the traffic is coming from, right? So there are a lot of people that are direct over this past month, right? There are some people that are doing organic search. That's where all my content kind of comes into play, right? I focus on the findability aspect of my content. I put keywords into my content, advisor marketing, right? Branding for financial services, social networking for financial professionals, etc. I do contribute content to other sites. So Napa, iris.xyz, Smarsh, we contribute content to a variety of different places. So that's the referral piece, right? Those are links that are coming in. And by the way, inbound links to your website, Google loves so much because that tells Google that you are an authority on the topics, right? And then social. So I can see kind of what kind of traffic social is driving. And guess what? The more active I am on social, the bigger that little yellow gets. I also can kind of look about how many page views, how long people are sticking around, etc. One of the things that I think makes my eyes cross, though, is that this is the behavior flow. So Google Analytics tells me how many people, where people are coming in to ShoeFitts.com, and then where do they go after that? And where do they drop off? So a lot of people come to my homepage, ShoeFitts.com, and they kind of stick around. But then they actually do, in this particular case, right, look at a variety of other kind of things that we have going on, which is why I keep looking at my homepage. How can I make those doors easier? How can I make those doors benefits focused? How can I make those doors service focused? That's what we're looking at with regards to what we're going to do shifting ShoeFitts.com. I also have a podcast. On that particular podcast, I direct people to womenrockingwallstreet.com. When they go there, they come in to a particular page, right? And that takes them to my podcast. So I'm able to kind of look at this behavior and start to understand what I might change and shift about my activity in the social sphere or my content sphere, what I'm sharing, right? This tells me a lot. Oh man, Google Analytics, you could just spend hours there. So that's one way that you can kind of start to measure. And you can work alongside your webmaster to actually put in some conversion keys and start to measure conversions on your site. Now, does social networking, social media, digital marketing really work? What's this? Is my Valentine's Day present. This is a raised bed. So my sweetie pie built me a couple of raised beds a couple of years ago. And they're wonderful. It's a hot box and really good for lettuce, right? And peas and beans. But my tomatoes and peppers, they don't really get enough sun. So I begged Greg last year, please, oh please, build me another raised bed that's smack dab in the sun all day long, and it didn't happen. So this year for Valentine's Day, I pretty much demanded that he build me a raised bed. Guess what? We went down to the local Milwaukee lumber and I picked it up. It was already built and everything. So I could have done it myself. Dag nabbit. But this is a raised bed. It is February. I'm not anticipating any tomatoes just yet. Right? I need to plant them. I need to nurture them. I need to water them. I need to prune them. And then I'm going to get tomatoes in September. But that doesn't mean that I'm not going to do the work right now. Marketing's like that, right? Marketing is exactly like a raised bed. That you've got to nurture it right now for future work. Last year, I got lucky and there was a volunteer tomato that actually had some wonderful the little cherry tomatoes, the sun gold ones that popped up. I got lucky. But most of the time, for me to get tomatoes and get good tomatoes, I have to do the work. And then they show up. Marketing's like gardening, right? And I think of these kind of blog posts all the time because I am building my blogging muscle. I'm starting to have a perspective, right? And the more I write, the easier it is for me to write more. So what are you planting right now with your marketing? What are you planting right now? That's my question. So let's talk about this digital marketing plan. I have a document, right, over in the handout section that you can download. It's an Excel spreadsheet, and it's all of these lovely ideas that we've thrown down for marketing for you, and it maps it out by the quarter and even by the week. Oh my God, we love ourselves some Excel spreadsheets. Thought leadership, right? Website content, newsletter, nurture marketing, social media stuff, lead generation campaigns. So what's my lead magnet? Am I doing webinars? What kind of press releases? Holiday gifts? By the way, I didn't do a Christmas card this year because that is not unforgettable. We did a Chinese New Year card. It's the year of the red monkey. That's unforgettable when people get something off calendar. We've kind of done all of that for you. So please download that in the handout section. And then somebody asked me, hang on a second, let me back out of here, because somebody asked me, can I email the document you mentioned? So all of the documents associated with the handouts, they're over in the GoToWebinar control panel. If you click on the little gray arrow, it'll click down and you'll see all of those 5 handouts that I'm offering up. So now you understand a little bit more about this digital marketing ecosystem, right? A little bit. Last time I shared my ultimate digital gear guide. I thought I would share it again because there's some fabulous things on that digital gear guide, and I haven't shared it with the broader social world yet. I have it all set up as a lead magnet, and I'll probably do that next week. But for now, it is attached in the handouts over to the right. In addition, there's some interesting information about speaking that I do and our speaking menu. Is your website working for or against you is a post that I did for Advisor Tweets, which is a Smarsh business. If you go to smarsh.com, you can find that particular blog. It really goes back through everything that we've kind of talked about with regards to inbound and outbound marketing, right? Calls to action, welcoming, etc. And how to create a killer digital brand is in March. And then April 14th, I'm deciding on April 14th, right? Because we've got some information from you about what you need help with. So if you've got specific things that you want to see, a digital institute broadcast about, please let me know. I'd like to know. That's why we're taking these polls, is to try to see where we can help you really kind of rock this digital and social sphere. Heads up. I launched a social selling for financial advisors course last year, and it's not converting very well. And I think the reason why is because, one, I'm marketing it as an e-course, and everybody's like, poke my eyes out. I don't want to do an e-course. That sounds like continuing education. I don't have the time. I don't have the energy. But in the past, I've done social selling boot camps, and they've been very successful. And that's because there's a lot of hands-on help and interaction with me. So you'll hear more about our social selling boot camp. It's kind of our social selling 2.0. We're going to relaunch it and change some things and add a huge amount of personal guidance and Q&A for you into that particular program. And it's going to launch on April 5th, by the way. And it will be a month long, so no wimps allowed. But by the end of the month, you will be rocking your social selling. Social selling, right? So a little bit different than social kind of networking or marketing. Here's how you can get a hold of me and learn more about ShoeFitts. And I'll hang out for a few minutes. For those of you that might have questions, I'd be happy to kind of answer questions, so you can throw them into the question box right there. Somebody did ask, will we get the slides? I do not share slides. I do share recordings, and I do share all those handy dandy handouts. So be on the lookout for the recording on ShoeFitts.com. And also all the handy dandy handouts will help you kind of get grounded. In particular, the marketing and social media planning piece, right? I hope you all have a wonderful day. And I'll sit around here for the next 3 minutes and answer any questions you might have. Cool. So Dustin asked, what was the website that will give you the snappy subject lines for the emails? That is CoSchedule. So Google CoSchedule and look for headline grader, right? Headline grader. Yeah. And then, so Google Analytics, Tammy has a question about Google Analytics and how can that help you with conversions. There are codes that you can put onto your site that indicate a conversion. We've got those coded kind of on some of our lead magnet pages or whatnot. I am not the fabulous kind of programmer as it relates to the website work that we do. I just do the creative direction and design and content and all that kind of stuff. So there is a way for you to be able to put a code. Cool. I'm glad you liked it, Farah. Take care, you guys. Bye-bye.